Here on some saltbush plantings, Wensleydale, a very saline drainage system through here for a lot of naturally growing salt-loving plants. And in bird terms, this habitat is a work in progress. What I've seen so far here has been birds of the open country, pipits moving through, looking for insects through this mixture of ground cover types. Saltbush is one part of this system. The other succulents growing naturally here also provide that food, and also possibly in time, some nest sites, if not already, as we move further down this saline drainage system. We also have migratory birds from up north again, from northern Australia, moving through. Crimson chats I've seen along the road, along this skilling road here on the way this morning, and it wouldn't surprise me to find them down through this system. Trillers, white-winged trillers, we've seen at other sites throughout this project and this sampling period, this survey period, and they're quite widespread across this landscape. And again, they're birds that return north at the end of the breeding season here. So any productive activity here, harvesting, etc., would be best happening from autumn onwards, after the breeding season for the birds is finished. So there are, the airspace itself is foraged over by welcome swallows, and also there are raptors, birds of prey, that move through and across this system. So it might look like there's not a lot happening right now, but certainly in time, particularly as the saltbush grows too, matures, it's only 1 year old, I think, approximately, there will be more opportunities for other species of insect-eating, ground-foraging birds. It's mostly the insect eaters here that we see. There are dead trees further down here, and again, we can't overemphasise the importance of retaining those trees as perch and roost points, and in some cases even nest points if there's hollows in them, for birds moving through this part of the landscape. So it's quite a unique environment. It's a good example of this mix between production and biodiversity conservation in terms of habitat for birds and insects and a range of other animals that you might find in these areas. There's also, I should also mention, on the other side of the saltbush plantings here, we have approximately 10 years ago a group of mixed eucalypts and I think casuarinas that were also planted for habitat and probably windbreak and other valleys. So we'll go across and have a look at those soon. We're here at a site of the footprints of red-capped dotterel. Red-capped dotterel are small little birds that you do find in these systems. You quite often find them around the muddy shores of dams and lakes, but the soil moisture is still here, so there's potential for some prey to be still sealed here. However, a lot of these tracks we're looking at here are the bird is actually trying to get protection from the blasting winds coming in. These are more likely to be foraging tracks rather than the tracks on the other side of this little swale here behind that ridge, more protective from the southeasterly winds. So anyway, we've got over here, not too far away, probably about 12 ridges away, so about 20 metres, 30 metres away, we've got 3 red-capped dotterel, 2 females and a male. And these birds move around, they're quite nomadic, tracking changing resource conditions, food availability, etc. They feed on small aquatic invertebrates and insects occasionally too, I think. But the important thing here is that I've seen them breeding in these environments, and it's a classic example of the mixing of the two objectives we often have out in these systems, that is production with the saltbush and biodiversity conservation with some of the animals that can actually live and breed in these landscapes. And it's not unusual to see, and it's just a shallow scoop in in the soil behind a small shrub, behind this samphire for example, maybe a little bit more. There's a saltbush here too, so as the saltbush grows there'll be more a protective base for nests, but it's not uncommon to see these the females squatting down real low in just a shallow scrape behind the vegetation in which they lay their eggs. Very exposed, very at risk of fox and cat, and we've seen plenty of tracks of those around here. But that's the life, that's the lot of the red-capped dotterel. So it's quite a nice little story to tell. What we've just seen are a small group of 6 birds, white-fronted chat, and they're another bird that forages through these salt marsh and samphire flats. They're actually a salt marsh specialist, and we've just observed the males and the females taking insects from the vegetation on these small ridges, and the samphire and the saltbush and other plants growing on the ridges, and as well as on the swales, the low points between the 2 ridges, taking insects off the soil. So they're a bird that moves around, nomadic or locally dispersive in response to changing conditions in food availability, and they will breed in these systems as well. So both the red-capped dotterel and the white-fronted chats are examples of the value of these ostensibly production systems for nature conservation as well. So another nice tie-in, another nice link between production and biodiversity conservation in these systems. Standing here on the southern side of this main saline drainage channel where the saltbush has been planted and is existing alongside the naturally occurring samphire, we move across in an artificial drain here, and then on the other side of that, in the lower slopes of this hill here, or this area here, are the last vestiges of what was once a native shrubland, woodland with individual scattered grevillea, the pink flowering grevillea, and there's a dead dryandra and some hakea. And even with these plants, they're still providing bird habitat. We've been looking at a small group of 5 to 6 white-winged fairy wren foraging in here. They're taking insects off the flowering heads of off the flowers of the grevillea and calling and moving along this area. So, and I would expect those birds to move into and forage through the saltbush as it matures. They're probably doing that already and flying across to more samphire on the other side, and on the other side, across this nice little cross section, if you like, across the main channel where the plantings are, is another strip of planted vegetation, this time eucalypts, a little bit older, melaleuca and alocasharina. And in there, Ingrid's previously spotted a pied butcherbird looking for food up and down the eucalypt branches. And also there's some more common species, ringnecks and galahs, etc. But importantly also the little birds, small insect-eating yellow rumped thornbill. They're in there as well. So we've got this nice little cross-section here, and it's another example of the marriage, if you like, between production and conservation in this part of the landscape. Standing here in another patch of revegetation on the Wensleydale property that borders the main saline drainage channel with all the saltbush plantings that we've just been in earlier on. Here we have a mixed species planting of around about the 10-year of age mark of eucalypts. We've got melaleucas, hakeas, we've got alocasharina tucked in and around, and it's really basically amounting to a growing new habitat, a woodland shrubland habitat. And not surprisingly, we find some of the birds that we would normally find in genuine remnant native vegetation also able to be in here and forage and possibly even nest and move through this growing new habitat. Birds like the singing honeyeater, which is calling now, and rufous whistler, weebills, and there's fairy wrens on the other side, white-winged fairy wrens, but they're on the other side of the patch. And also, very interestingly, also on the other side, but flying across into the edge, are crimson chat. Quite a spectacular, the males are spectacularly red and black markings, a bit bigger than the white fronters. The white fronters are the more local nomadic sedentary species, but the crimson chats come down in spring from the north and return in autumn. There's summer breeding migrants here, so it's quite a pleasure to have birds like that around, crossing the samphire into the edge of this set of plantings here. And it's quite a substantial area here, and yet another a bit of adding more diversity to this landscape, up against the samphire and saltbush plantings, and then younger eucalypt plantings on the other side. So it's quite a diverse landscape, offering a range of different habitats for birds, and also abundant insect life. There's spiders everywhere in there, and a range of other insects. So there's plenty of food around, potential nest sites in a landscape that doesn't have much to offer. It's quite cleared in this part of the landscape. You need to look to the ridge caps and so forth to find significant remnants. So down here, these plantings in time will assume even greater importance in providing what I'd anticipate to be breeding habitat for some of these woodland, shrubland birds.